Salvation comes from my one self. This can be a little disorienting, talking about mind and spirit and body and all these different things that it does bring up, but it is essentially saying that they cannot work apart from each other, and that one self is everything together. So even as the mind in which it's referring to is not what I always refer to as consciousness, there's the conscious self, that is an ego personality. So this mind in this particular lesson is referring to that ego conscious self, okay? And then it's not even mentioning the fact that of that consciousness of Christ. It's not even mentioning that, okay? So as it mentions spirit, it is still referring to the holy spiritual universe. As it mentions a body, it's talking about the physical universe. And when it mentions mind, it's talking about the fourth dimension, the ego personality, okay? So this ego personality is born into the world, into a body, and then its mind is developed in the sense of a body. There's even a statement in that says if you believe you're a body, then you do not, you're completely divorced from, well, there's a couple lines I'm mixing up now, but if you think of yourself as a body, then you have no mind, you're lost your mind. And that is what is referring to, that's the only sense that I made out, pointing out that that's referring to the Christ consciousness. So the mind in which, of course, you think of yourself as a body, you're like, I have a brain, what do you mean? I have a brain, I'm not a scarecrow, right? So in that recognition that it's not referring to that personality at that very moment, but most of the time, when what you know as personality, if you think of yourself as personality, or your mind personality, so mind / personality, you're not recognizing that your source of strength is spirit. And that's because the spirit, and this gets into the dimensions, and that's why it's so helpful to lay it out and draw it out as I would be doing on a different course. I don't want to talk about it too much in that. So there is the original, say, Christ consciousness is the first dimension. Then that becomes present in the spiritual universe, which is the second dimension. And then the third dimension is the physical construct, the bodies. And then the fourth dimension is another aspect of consciousness that believes it's separate. So it came after birth, and the Christ consciousness came before any sort of existence, including birth. So to recognize that, yes, the source, even the source of Christ is the 0th dimension, which is God, okay? So I'm just paraphrasing, saying this real quick, okay? So God is the source of strength of Christ. Christ is the source of strength of spirit, essentially, and the relationship between God. And so what you know as your personality and your body, all is a source of strength of this spiritual universe. Like nothing exists in the shape and form construct without this holographic representation. So what a holographic representation is, I mean, you take examples like, really the biggest one that we have in working construction in the world is at Disneyland or Disney World, where they have the dancing ghosts, okay? There's two crucial things about those dancing ghosts. If you have ever seen it, maybe you should look it up. That there's the fog, the smoke, and then the lights coming from multiple angles to actually develop the same one image needs multiple angles of lights, and then it's hitting at the same point in the fog to develop what seems to be a 3D image. The fog reflects and bounces off the light, that is the laser lights that hit in the same spot. I mean, talk about intense technology. So this whole universe, as you see right here, right now, is extremely advanced form of any sort of technology that we have as holographic image. So We're actually talking about the entirety of what consciousness is being manifest in a holographic representation. So it's not just using lights and sounds, it's using every sensory perception that you believe that you have. The whole reason we have these, say, 5, 6 senses is because then we can be invested in wholeheartedly experiencing the body and the personality mind as ourselves. You see what I'm saying? So you're completely invested in it because it is strictly reflecting, putting all of your, say, Christ consciousness into representation. So that's why it's called the representative of God, or the voice of God. The Holy Spirit is representing the relationship between the Father and the Son. So that, of course, gets even more complex. But the whole, what you're experiencing now, and the reason you don't recognize or know God or do, is all depends on what you are aware of in your Christ consciousness. Okay? So it's pretty intense. If you think yourself as the personality mind, yes, you are lost and you are stuck in believing that you are a body. Yes, if you think of yourself as a body, yes, you lost all aspect of consciousness. There's no way you're tapping into it. So if you think of yourself as spirit, even then are you not aware of the facets in which manifest in spirit. Yes, you are, say, in that sense of any sort of structure, you are only spirit. Like this is, and even as I talk about the third and fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th dimensions, is all still the first dimension, the 0th, the first, and the second dimension replicated, duplicated, manifest continuously. Okay, so this is still the holographic spiritual universe. So it is all spirit. And you'll come to a lesson soon that says, I am spirit. And so it's actually pretty interesting as you're coming into recognizing this. The big confusion comes from the misunderstanding of, even as A Course in Miracles talks about consciousness, and it's referring to the ego personality. So the ego personality is a tiny aspect of what is the Christ consciousness. It's a very tiny aspect. It literally is encased in this physical construct. It is literally the brain. Okay? It is literally the brain. Memories and thoughts and ideas and belief systems and so on. It is literally in here. Okay? That's a fourth dimensional perspective that makes this whole experience seem like time. So, and that's another huge thing that we have touched a little bit on. But so what you are, as in the true Christ consciousness, is not that conscious self. It's more of the subconscious and the superconscious self of what we all are. So that's getting into the dreamer consciousness mind. So my salvation comes from my one self is at first, yes, it's kind of redirecting your attention to thinking it's down this journey, this business that's going to be successful, or this facet this is going to do it for me, or oh, this marriage is going to save me, or this girlfriend's going to do it for me, and I'm going to find happiness, or this is happiness, that is happiness, this is my painkiller, this will finally relieve me of pain. All of these different things that we think are going to protect ourselves or keep ourselves in some sort of or any sort of experience. It's interesting because the one self that recognizes that I am the one dreamer of all existence, I am the one self, the only one self that exists. When I recognize I'm the only one self exists, not just, oh, I'm mind, body, spirit, I'm all one here, and you're one there, and they're one there. No, we're all the one self. The one self is the salvation that has the authority to make any of these decisions, has made all these decisions, and has constructed this reality, invented the world in which we see. Okay? So until you actually recognize what that one self is and actually take the position of the authority who created the world as we know it, in any sense, only until you recognize that, until you know who that Christ is, you have no authority whatsoever to change it. So your salvation comes from that authority in which created your experience to be what it is today. So yes, you might, and of course, think you're a personality that's going down this way, and you might even get into like medical intuition and stuff, or your chakras, or things like that. And you're like, oh, I have to fix and adjust and change, and in order to have this experience happening. But you got into this experience by your association to your Christ consciousness. So really, no matter what, all of that is all about how and where are you disassociated to your reality as the dreamer perspective. Okay? Where are you disassociated? Where are you disconnected? So yes, as you get into frequencies, and I teach courses on energy and everything, it's really still just a manifestation of what and where you are connected to the totality of your reality. So that one self is the salvation of everything. It really is the only thing in which that can save. And it's not anyone that has ever died. It's not anyone that has ever resurrected. It's not anybody. It is within you. It is always within you. That's where it is. Okay? So yes, mentors and teachers and coaches and gurus and people like me, whatever it is, can help you, and we can all be companions in going to it, but it is going to inside you, nowhere else. As there is so much that has been talked about in this lesson, and I like to explain it because in the definitions of the dimensions, because it's a little easier to understand. Still, a lot of people talk about dimensions and really don't grasp and comprehend or say recall the experiences of these dimensions as I do. So it's a little tricky because as we're trying to comprehend it, we're trying to understand it, we're getting caught up in this mind stuff. And I just want you to recognize that even as statements seem to be contradictory to other statements, even as people would say, oh, well, spirit makes use of mind as a means of self-expression. And it's like, what is that mind in which it's using? So yes, the whole thing is used in the experience of like, what is the representation of what you are? Who are you that can express? And so as there's, of course, just so much packed into this lesson, I hope that you can recognize that you are, yes, you think you are this little ego personality, but what you actually are is the totality of consciousness. I was gonna go through the levels again. But your personality is based off the flesh, bone, body, physicality, which is a thickness of manifestation of energy, the spiritual universe, which is only manifest from the consciousness of Christ, which is a perspective or a perceiver of that which is the totality of the zeroth dimension of God. Wow.